If you are looking for a show to watch while in quarantine, check out Grey's Anatomy. It has 16 seasons of action, drama, and romance that you can go through, and you can actually see some scientific elements inside. I started watching Grey's Anatomy when I was a freshman in college, and I saw a similarity between chemical bonds and some of the relationships with the characters. Chemical bonds are attractions between ions, atoms, or molecules that create compounds. Like couples, bonds have different levels of strength depending on their attraction. Today, I will be matching chemical bonds up with some of the most iconic couples from Grey's Anatomy. Chemical bonding has two types of forces, intermolecular forces and intramolecular forces. Intermolecular forces are forces that exist between molecules. Intramolecular forces are forces within the molecule. Generally speaking, intramolecular forces are stronger than intermolecular forces. And since I'm ranking the couples from weakest to strongest, I'm going to start in the intermolecular force category. First up, and the weakest in the group, are van der Waal forces, and they are represented with April and Matthew.
I've been watching you for 2 days. You don't seem to slow down. Thought you might need a break. Maybe grab a cup of coffee? Probably shouldn't have started with the whole watching you thing, huh? Now you think I'm some sort of creeper. I'm not. Unless you're inclined to have coffee with creepers, in which case I totally creep.
I don't know about you, but I didn't believe that April and Matthew had a chance from the start. It was very clear that she was still in love with Jackson, was using him as a fling and something to distract herself. I can never understand why Matthew couldn't see this, because it was clear as the day, and so when he went to propose, that was the dumbest thing he could have done. They ranked the lowest on the scale because their entire relationship was a short-lived distraction that was demolished by a sappy speech at a wedding.
I love you, April. I always have. I love everything about you.
Like April and Matthew, van der Waal forces are weak and short-lived, with the exception being that there's actually attraction happening between atoms and molecules instead of two actors who have zero chemistry. Now, van der Waal forces come in 3 flavors: London dispersion, ion dipole, and dipole-dipole. Each of these are dependent in molecules interacting in a dipole moment. A dipole moment occurs when there is a separation of charge. This is easy to remember because it's one of those words that kind of defines itself, where di means two and pole is like a magnet where one side is positive and the other side is negative. April and Matthew's entire relationship can be summarized as a van der Waal force because, again, weak and short-lived, and had plenty of dipole moments where Matthew was the extremely positive side and April was the negative side. The next weakest couple on the list is Owen and Amelia.
I am tired of being the messed up one, okay? Because I'm not. You are at least as messed up as me.
You disappeared.
You are suffocating me.
That is unfair.
Really? I would love to ask Christina how suffocated she felt by you.
Owen and Amelia's entire relationship was confusing at best. It felt like the writers just put everyone's name in a hat and then drew them out and then just put them together. The relationship went from 0 to 100 back to 0 so incredibly quickly, it was amazing. We see them date for a little bit, and then after a while Amelia proposes, they get married, and then Amelia thinks she's pregnant, which brings up a fundamental flaw in their relationship, where Amelia doesn't want to have kids, but Owen does. So instead of having a conversation about it, or having this conversation before getting married like a normal couple would, Amelia just loses her mind, leaves him a note telling him it's over, and then moves into the house of her surgical resident. We are then told later in the season that it was because Amelia had a brain tumor that was making her act different, but even when they tried to get back together, it didn't work. They called it quits and got a divorce. It was so easy for them to walk away from their marriage for 2 reasons. One, the entire thing was a giant dipole, and they had uneven levels of positivity and negativity, both professionally and personally. And the second reason was because Owen was attracted to someone else. Because of this, I have classified them as hydrogen bonds. Like van der Waal forces, hydrogen bonds are also intermolecular forces, but these are depending on dipoles that are formed when hydrogen is paired with nitrogen, oxygen, or fluorine. One of the biggest things to remember in chemical bonding is that atoms want to satisfy the octet rule. The octet rule is a rule of thumb used in chemistry. Basically, atoms are happiest with 8 electrons in their outer shell. Oxygen, nitrogen, and fluorine all want 8 electrons in their outer shell, and they will pair with as many hydrogens as it takes to make that happen, but that is not hydrogen bonding. Remember, hydrogen bonding is an intermolecular force, meaning it's occurring between molecules. Let's look at an example. Here we see a bunch of different water molecules. The water molecules have a separation of charge, where the end with the oxygen is negative and the end with the hydrogen is positive. We get hydrogen bonds when the positive H from one molecule is attracted to the negative O in another. Owen literally shows the exact same pattern as hydrogen bonding. He is attached to someone, which is Amelia, but attracted to someone else, which is Teddy. And then he's surprised when he gets a taste of his own medicine, when he's then attached to Teddy, but she's attracted to someone else, which is Karasik, and we all know how that's going.
Let's not wait till 7. Let's leave now. I can't leave with you. I am marrying Owen.
Owen said to send everyone home. He didn't call you? No.
Now we are moving into intramolecular forces, the ones that are actually inside the molecules, and we're starting out with metallic bonding, represented by Mark and Lexi.
You okay?
I love you. Oh, God, oh my God, that just came flying out of my face. It was some kind of, I love you. I did it again.
At best, I would describe Mark and Lexi's relationship loose but strong. Let me explain. It was loose because they went back and forth and were on and off for a good minute. At first they were together, then they separated, then they were together again, but then Mark's daughter came to town with the baby and Lexi didn't want to be a young grandma, so they were apart again. So she got with Alex, then they got back together, broke up, so she got with Jackson, wanted to get back together with Mark, but then he was with Amelia. It was a mess. But once they decided that they wanted to be together, they were a solid couple, at least until Lexi tragically died in the plane crash while they were describing their future together.
We're gonna get married, and you're gonna become an amazing surgeon. And we're gonna have 2 or 3 kids. We're supposed to end up together. We're meant to be.
Lexi and Mark are like metallic bonds based off of how they would delocalize, rebond, and then repeat. Metallic bonds are formed between electrons and positively charged metal ions. The ions become positively charged because of the delocalization of the outer shell electrons. Once the electrons from the outer shell detach, they are free to move and they're shared with all of the positive ions. Bonds are then formed and strong electrostatic attractions are what holds everything together. Moving on, the most ionic couple is the most iconic couple. I apologize for nothing. Meredith and Derek.
I love you. In a really, really big, pretend to like your taste in music. Let you eat the last piece of cheesecake. Hold a radio over my head outside your window. Unfortunate way that makes me hate you. Love you.
Meredith and Derek are one of the most well-known and loved couples in the history of television. They had such a unique beginning, and it was kind of an opposites attract situation, with Meredith being a dark and twisty intern with few relationships with her family, and Derek being a hotshot, dreamy surgical resident who was the prodigy of the family. Their marriage was extremely successful and strong because they were really good at give and take. If Meredith was going through something difficult or stressful at work, then Derek would pick up the slack with Zola, and vice versa. This flexibility gave them such a strong marriage and demonstrates exactly how ionic bonding works. Ionic bonding is a type of intramolecular force involving the transfer of electrons between ions with opposite charges. Let's look at NaCl. Na has 1 electron in its outermost shell, where Cl has 7, and they both want to fulfill the octet rule, having 8 electrons in their outermost shell. Sodium will give its valence electron to chlorine, fulfilling the octet rule while creating a positive sodium ion and a negative chlorine ion. This type of bond is extremely strong because of the transfer of electrons, and it makes both molecules happy, like Meredith and Derek, until the strongest couple the show has ever had is definitely Ben and Bailey.
All right, you can take all the job sabbaticals you want and change your career a dozen times, and I will be with you every step of the way. But either we are in this together or we aren't. And I never planned a version where we weren't.
Bailey and Ben have been together forever, and they have the type of relationship that we should all aspire to have because they have great levels of communication. They share everything with each other. We have seen Ben switch his career twice, from anesthesiologist to surgical resident to firefighter, and we've seen Miranda struggle through her job as chief of surgery and have a heart attack and miscarriage. And while these things would have destroyed other couples on the show, they have stayed together through it all. They share and celebrate each other's endeavors and successes like a happy couple should, and this is why they are represented with covalent bonding. Covalent bonds are extremely strong, and they form from sharing of electrons between two nonmetals. Let's talk about Cl2. Both of them have 7 valence electrons in their outer shell, and they so desperately want 8. So each of them share an electron so the outermost shell can be full. Sharing is what gives strength to Miranda and Ben, and it's also what gives the strength to covalent bonds. And they are the strongest intramolecular force that we have. Let's recap our couples and our chemical bonds. We started with intermolecular forces, the one in between molecules. The lowest was van der Waal forces, represented by April and Matthew. Then we had hydrogen bonds with Owen and Amelia. We looked at our stronger forces, our intramolecular forces, the ones actually occurring within the molecule. We started with metallic with Lexi and Mark, moved to ionic with Meredith and Derek, and lastly we had covalent bonds with Ben and Miranda. I hope you enjoyed this video and it helped you with chemical bonding, or at least inspired you to watch Grey's Anatomy. If you enjoyed this kind of video, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe down below. You can watch my last video over there. It's about drag queens and periodic trends, and I will see you next week.